Hello, namaste. This is Timothy, and happy eclipse season, 2017, springtime eclipses. It's February, we're about a day away from Valentine's Day, and for a while I was doing personal updates at the time of the eclipses, and that sort of ended in 2016 because 2016 was an incredibly difficult year for myself, as I'm sure it was for many of you. Particularly springtime eclipses in 2016, I was incredibly catatonically depressed. And I've been going through this incubation hermit phase for a long time, pretty much my whole life, up until recently. And so I'm trying to ease myself out of the hermitage, let the cat out of the bag, be more social, reach more people. And it's tough inner work for myself. I'm moving through a lot of insecurities and inadequacies, particularly this year, as I'm flying to Costa Rica in May to do a astrological conference with a bunch of amazing and inspiring people, and so plowing through all that stuff on my end. And so I just wanted to share what's going on my end personally, talk a little bit about Rasa Lila healing, the developments that are going on over here, and just talk a little bit about from myself, my own personal subjective self, which, I do think it's important to share the personal subjective self. Being considerably Leo and having our lunar eclipse in Leo just a couple days ago. So astrologers have different opinions and perspectives, and that's the beautiful, wonderful thing about astrology, is you can learn from everybody's diverse perspectives. There's different astrologers, there's different teachers, there's different schools of thought for different people, and that is how life works. There is no perfect teacher, astrologer, method teaching for everybody. There is no one size fits all. And so, I believe in putting yourself out there. If you're in a healer, teacher, educator, anything type of role, I think it's important to share yourself and your personal story. And so I put my birth chart out there on my website. I have nothing to hide. And other astrologers have different perspectives. Some people think that's too much information, which I don't understand because I'm not making anybody interpret my chart. It's just there. You don't have to stare at it. And some people think it's too much information to put out there, as if, there's going to be sorcerers or bad people that steal it, or people are afraid for privacy concerns because of the government and the internet. And all I got to say is, 1,000 years into the age of Aquarius, there's going to be less privacy than there is now. And that will be an ongoing lesson, but what can I say? I mean, you got to show up as you are and have nothing to hide, and I think that's sort of the best approach if you're going to put yourself in a teacher, educator, interacting with people in your work type of role. That's just my personal opinion. And so I want to talk a little bit about my own story, sort of how I came into astrology, because I don't know if I've really talked about it that much, and how that's inspiring me in what I'm going to be presenting about in Costa Rica in just a few months. So, about 10 years ago in 2008, I had my spiritual awakening when I had my first moon's lunar return, my north nodes in Aquarius. And it was a horrible, terrifying, violent awakening. It really ripped a hole open in my being through which I could see all of the unconscious, bullshit, hellish nature in myself and in our world. And I was never able to close that hole back up. Immediately following that, I came into a very, almost obsessively spiritual stage. Sort of reflecting my early childhood, where I was raised Christian, very into Jesus, and went to church pretty much every week the first 16 years of my life through my upbringing. That sort of cycled over again in my early 20s, where I became a very devout Hare Krishna. I was exploring Hinduism. I was very into meditation and chanting and doing everything by the book, driven largely by fear from my awakening. And that seriousness and forcefulness, I was fasting, I was doing everything as intensely, and I wanted to get there as quick as I could, and if you take that approach, everything falls apart. And so this is a phase and a process that I've been going through many years. And the reason why I speak so much against the cultural, traditional, by-the-book type of approach to spirituality and life is because I have learned the hard way. I also speak about, methods, tools, practices to come out of the goody-goody phase or stage of spirituality because, again, I spent a long time in the goody-goody phase and I learned the hard way. So these are the reasons why I came into astrology in the first place, is I was very driven to figure myself and reality out, driven by these really intense, deep understandings that, where we are is not exactly perfect, and we're not in a time where things are really as they're meant to be, etc. And I'm sure that this experience and this awakening is familiar to many of you, and the entire world is going to be going through this experience and this awakening through the next several years. And it's not fun, and it's not necessarily comfortable, though it is 100% necessary and healthy and good for us, and will inevitably bring us to the light at the end of the tunnel rather than remaining frigidly where we are, as if that's a good thing. And so, in my presentations in Costa Rica, I'm presenting about Chiron. I'm presenting about the transition from the sign of Leo to Virgo, and I'm presenting about the archetype Lucifer. And there is a common thread between all of these presentations, and that is down. How do we go down? How do we go into the shadow? How do we go into our wounds? How do we tap our feet onto the ground? Because this is going to be one of the most pertinent lessons that we are collectively going through the next several years. And so that's just coming from my own experience and sharing these things in a way that can hopefully be, inspirational or uplifting or useful in even the slightest way to any person would make it worthwhile to me. So, in 2010, I was driven to find astrology, and originally I was attracted to Vedic astrology because I was doing the whole very devout Hindu, by-the-book practices, rituals, etc. So I tried to learn Vedic astrology, and I did learn some things. I learned about some archetypes, I learned about some methods, but I never got a grip on it. I never really met the right teacher. I never clicked. I never really figured out, okay, this is natural. It was always very methodological and intuitive, or procedural, which is some people's dream. Some people are natural at that, not myself. So it wasn't until years later, finding Kipacha, Tom Lesher, through YouTube, and getting a reading with him, that really changed my entire life. And that was all brought about by meeting my fiancée, Mackenzie, who some of you may know. I met her in 2010. That turned my life completely on its head. That's what changed my path at that time, from being someone who wanted to go into a temple and become a celibate monk and live a monastic life, to falling very deeply in love and everything in my life very radically changing. And since then, I've been going through a rather tumultuous time where not everything has been served to me on a silver platter, and it's just been layer after layer getting stripped away, which is what I think I want on a soul level, to get rid of all of the religious bullshit and come into the essence of what religion is supposed to be. And through the Hare Krishnas, through Gaudiya Vaishnavism, I learned so many things that will remain with me the rest of my life. Those symbols, those stories, those personalities leave such a profound effect on us through love, through the heart, that to be separate from such personalities, stories, symbols, for any amount of time is very painful. These are symbols that will remain with us through the rest of our life. We have our hearts touched in so many ways, but the journey always continues. We don't stay still. We never say, this is it, I've got it, figured it out, I've got the ritual, the practice, the routine, everything's perfect. The rest of the world will follow suit and everybody will be saved. It never, ever, 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 ever works like that in this world, where there is no dog, or there is no one size fits all. When Kipacha read my chart for the first time, it completely changed my life. And it's oftentimes like that with the first time you experience something that is radical, revolutionary, spiritual, an awakening like that. It was the first time that an authority or an adult, particularly in a masculine, male, older role, reaffirmed and really saw who I was and reaffirmed my life. And that was enough to completely change me from that day forth. And his reading was so accurate, he even said, you know, you're very comfortable in front of a camera, you can put yourself out there through the camera, but when you're in intimate relations with other people, it's very, very different. And this is completely true. Who I am on camera when I'm talking about these things, this is Leo mode for me. And I have a huge Leo complex. If you want to know what your own unconscious complex is, look to the house and sign of your Pluto, particularly the house, and the house and sign of your moon south node. My Pluto's in the 5th house Leo, my south node is in Leo. So I have an enormous Leo complex. And I take things very personally, and I have the whole water trine, I'm very sensitive, etc. And have tons of anxiety, tons of social anxiety, and I'm very awkward and weird in person. But I can talk to a camera when I'm in the middle of nowhere and no one's around me, no problem. And that was before I had ever put a video out there, is when he said that. But it inspired me to start doing videos when he said that. And so I took Kipacha's astrology classes online in 2012. And I started to do astrology. That's when it clicked, when I took Kipacha's classes. He's a very Piscean, right brain, free-flowing, the opposite of procedural and methodological and structured, and that worked very, very well for myself personally. Again, different teachers, different people, etc. I just soaked it all up through osmosis, and I was able to put it into practice and start doing charts with other people immediately, and that's how I started to really learn. And then I started studying Jeffrey Green's Evolutionary Astrology, and I'll probably be studying that through the rest of my life, because his school of evolutionary astrology is so specific and so profound and so huge. It is massive and very detailed, the amount of information that can come from looking at any birth chart. So that's where I've been the last several years. And it wasn't until the last couple years that I really started to come out and do astrology professionally. After I took Kipacha's classes in 2012, I entered one of the hardest years of my entire life, immediately after I graduated college. I went to school for animation. I'm an animator. I have some astrology animations still sitting in my Hermitage, ready for the right time to be released. But anyways, I graduated school and I worked for a year as a search engine evaluator for a company called Leap Force, where I got paid less than minimum wage to be on a computer all day looking at advertisements, usually clothing, women's clothing or shoes advertisements, and having 45 seconds per image to do this rating, see how it works, then you move on to the next image for hours a day. Very, very unhealthy, really, really mentally distressing, and I was catatonically depressed for a long time. It was not until I started to practice astrology, and at first I was doing my readings for free, then for, donation, and then I started to charge and slowly over time raise my prices so that I could do it full time. And that really pulled me out of that depression, because I could finally start to reach other people in a way that felt meaningful, and I felt like I was able to be useful in some type of way. And so, going through these recent years, then I joined Kipacha's forums. He asked me to be a part of his dream team, and then he invited me to Costa Rica in almost no time at all. So, this has been such a fast-paced, intense coming out of my own little Cancer shell in Taurus Hermitage and being in the hut away from people, to suddenly getting sort of thrown out there and launched out there and reaching other people. It's been quite an experience, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I hope to continue to move in that direction. And so in that endeavor, this is a wonderful year. And so I'm trying to do more things, connect with more people. I had my first Q&A online yesterday, and I thought it went very well. It's very nice to have a sort of intimate social circle. And so I'm going to do another Q&A mid-March. You can go to rosalilahealing.simpletix.com. I'll put a link below, and you can purchase a $20 ticket plus the service fee for a couple hours where you can ask any questions, and it's just a conversation. It's very nonchalant, and it's a wonderful way to sort of form that circle and to learn some things at the same time. And I still want to hear from you guys. You can submit suggestions in terms of what you would like to learn. I've heard from many people that they would like an intro to astrology course. That might be something that I work on and offer maybe later on in summertime of this year. And so anyways, I just wanted to share a little bit of myself and put myself out there and thank the people that have touched my life so deeply. Thank you, Kipacha. Thank you, Mackenzie. I proposed to Mackenzie just a couple months ago, and so we're trying to get established and get our unit together, and we just bought a house several months ago. So really fast-paced, intense time, trying to get structured and trying to come out of the past identity, the past unconscious identity, and it's a lot of deep spiritual work this life is, isn't it? You know, even if not a lot is happening on the outside, sometimes a lot is happening on the inside. And so I just want to reaffirm to you, for those of you who have gone through so many intense inner changes these last several years, we've had this Uranus square Pluto, we had Saturn going through Scorpio, we had Pisces, Neptune, South Node the last year and a half. There's been so much going on, and it will continue for some years. Us really finding our power and voices as authorities of the new world. And so I want to reaffirm to you that that inner work, it does pay off. And when we seem like we're disconnected from God and that everything's going down the shitter and that you're cursed and that you're damned and that you messed up, and it seems like the dark night of the soul, oftentimes that is where the spiritual work, the lessons, and the grace is happening. And so, just to sort of conclude this personal rant, I'm going to share a little bit about what I'm presenting in Costa Rica. Chiron is a really, really important and powerful archetype to me. I really resonate with Chiron. It's very deep, very powerful, and I don't see enough out there in books, in lectures, in writing that really does Chiron justice. Chiron is the place in your chart where you have the opportunity to transcend the reality where everything that happens to you is bad, you're a victim, it's not fair, life is not just, you're drawing the short straw, etc. Transforming and transcending that perspective into the perspective where everything that happens to us, even the shittiest, most unfortunate things, are gifts to us. That type of transcendence can happen where Chiron is in your chart. And so I'm doing a presentation called Chiron Healing Through Bridging and Weaving. And we're going to talk about how, by going down into your past, into your wounds, into those things that seem unjust, that seem totally unfair, that make us feel abandoned, inadequate, etc. Those are our gifts. And by going down into those places where we are abandoned, where other people aren't, where we get dealt shit where other people don't, by embracing those things, even though it seems shitty, we have realizations, discoveries, tools, methods, and teaching through our own unique personal experience that nobody else can do but us because we are dealt the cards that we are dealt. Well, that is the healing potential to make those discoveries and then share them with other people. And we have Saturn square Chiron all of this year. It is a time where we have to be ready for that journey. And by going down into the past, into the wounds, by bringing healing, awareness, and illumination to those dark, congested places, we bridge the past with the future, with the healed, clear, clean, free-flowing and flexible, easy nature, by bridging that with the difficult parts in life. So that way we can see that all of it, the whole, is a gift and an opportunity that forms our story, our uniqueness, and our capability to help others, is Chiron. So Chiron and Lucifer I'm both presenting about because there is this tie. When we're talking about the unjust, the anger, the frustration towards the life that we receive, the unfair things that happen to us, these experiences that keep happening to us that we don't seem like we deserve, we are dealing with the Lucifer archetype. And I'm going to be shedding light on this archetype, which is, coincidentally, Lucifer means light bearer. And I'm going to be talking about this archetype as something that is not merely just Satan or the adversary, the temptation, the snake in the garden. Yeah, Lucifer is a lot more than just that. He can be all of those things as much as he is simultaneously the Redeemer, the Liberator, the Savior. Lucifer actually represents all of the above and both. Lucifer represents the Lord of the crossroads, where good meets evil, where separation meets union. Where do these points meet is unconditional love, is a understanding of reality that is beyond black and white, good and evil, is what the archetype of Lucifer gives us the potential to access. So again, tied with Chiron, we understand that there is no real being cursed, being damned, unfair, etc. All such curses end up being hand in hand with the greatest blessings. And those souls who go the lowest down into apparent so-called damnation, there is always the opportunity to redeem those places and those areas and that fall. There's always the opportunity to rise back and gain from that whole experience. And so we'll talk about Lucifer as well. And then because we're meeting in Costa Rica at the moment that the moon's north node is leaving Virgo and entering Leo, I'm going to be talking about that cusp. Specifically the transitioning from Leo into Virgo, which is another similarly down movement. And why this downward movement is pertinent to our own evolution, our ascension, and us finding our true adequate roles in service to the other. And so this is sort of a foreshadowing of what the entire collective is going to be doing through these next several years, through the 2020s, as we are going through a huge stage of evolution, where we have the opportunity to let go of all of these stagnant, old, restrictive, limiting cultural blockages that has been keeping our collective evolution stuck for hundreds of years. There's the opportunity to bust through all that stuff by getting down into it, seeing those blockages, seeing everything that's not working for us, so we can change those things. And so, in a similar endeavor, we are weaving and bridging the past with the future collectively these next several years. And I would love nothing more than to continue to talk with you guys, share these things, meet personally, form groups, endeavors, movements, music, art, whatever it's going to take for us to be empowered with that endeavor, to understand that endeavor. Think about how much healing happens through understanding. People don't always understand things, which can keep us very limited and controlled. But when we understand that this is not a punishment, this is not damnation, this is the function, the process of healing, evolution is a gift to us. It gives us a huge opportunity to be empowered by that, to not get lost into victimization or depression or etc., but rather come out on the other end being so much more authentic, powerful human beings, far more than we believed possible. We are all far more powerful than we believed possible. And so I am so glad to be on Earth at this time, despite the tumultuousness and the excitement and the intensity, to get to experience this and to have these realizations and to share it with you. And so again, thanks so much for the opportunity to connect. Thank you for those of you interested, curious, listening to this video. And I hope to connect with you more in the future. So much love to all of you. Namaste.